Welcome to The Whispering Soul, a podcast about living in rhythm with nature, understanding the language of the cosmos, and becoming more fully yourself. I'm Nancy Vellante, certified wellness coach and astrologer. Today I wanted to talk about awakening the voice. Uranus in Gemini and the Scorpio full moon shift. So we've experienced and will be experiencing this shift of Uranus and Gemini for a while now, a good 7 years. But the immediate shift is a little bit more intense and still making that transition from Taurus to Gemini. And that was on Saturday, April 25th, later in the day. And the Scorpio full moon will be on Friday, May 1st at 1:23 p.m. And that would be Eastern Standard Time. So you can adjust to wherever you are in the world. So let's get right into it. Something is shifting. You may feel it in your thoughts racing, in conversations changing, in the sudden need to say what you've been holding for far too long. This is Uranus moving into Gemini, an awakening of the mind, the voice, and the way we connect and communicate. But as everything speeds up, the Scorpio full moon pulls us deeper. Scorpio is a planet about transformation and rebirth. So before we can really get into the meat, and that won't be for a while, of this Uranus and Gemini, and at the beginning of it, Scorpio is asking us, well, let's make sure that we are transforming what needs to be uncovered so we can get to the truth, Uranus, and can communicate, Gemini. So it pulls us deeper. Scorpio is a water sign, and the water runs deep in Scorpio, and it can run hot. So we don't want to put a lid on that. We want to gently take the lid off and see what wants to bubble up to the surface. So as we go deeper into the surface of clarity, and into truth, our emotions will not ask for permission. They want to flow. They want to express. And that's the beauty and the struggle about being human, because there's times when it doesn't feel comfortable. But our emotional landscape is really the healing landscape that changes our mindset, changes who we are and who we can become. And it asks us to be with the parts of ourselves we've learned to manage, control, or quietly avoid. We've all done it. I raise my hand a lot of times here. And it's part of the learning process, part of the clearing process. Scorpio doesn't skim the surface. It asks, what are you afraid to feel? What are you afraid to lose? And what are you still gripping that's already trying to leave? This isn't just about change. It's about transformation, which is alchemizing into a completely different energy, a completely different mindset, a completely different way of being. Scorpio is about energy on a high level and on a low level. Scorpio, everybody says, oh my God, Scorpio, oh no. But you know what? In the higher consciousness of Scorpio, it is the utmost value of unconditional love when we allow ourselves to transform our fears of lack of self-love, love for others, projections onto others that we need to just be within ourselves. And then we come to Gemini, Uranus and Gemini, as they are traveling together this week. Because Gemini may ask you to speak, but Scorpio will ask you to mean it. So there's a level of contemplation, possibly. Also, Scorpio is going to ask you to feel it, to own the weight of what's true. Yeah, that might sound heavy and a little like, oh my God, that's overwhelming. But we take little pieces at a time. It doesn't have to be the whole ball of wax. It's too overwhelming for the nervous system. Yeah, so if things feel uncertain right now, if clarity feels just out of reach, it did for me this weekend, that's for sure. But I sat with it, not that I'm all, in tune with it, because I'm not, right? I'm human. I'm still sitting, still learning, still gathering. You're not doing it wrong. You're in the space between who you've been and who you're becoming. That's not always comfortable. Kind of like being in the birth canal. Oh, you're almost there, but you're not quite there. So you're in this liminal space. And that space can feel like unraveling. Old identities with all this Aries energy that we still have, planets in Aries, it is asking us, what is the old identity? Because we're going to want a new identity to match with this beautiful energy. I say beautiful energy of Uranus in Gemini as it goes through its transformation of the versions that don't work into the higher consciousness. So again, old identities, old attachments, old ways of staying safe. The Scorpio full moon doesn't take gently. That's just the energy. And we need that sometimes. We need that tough love, right? It reveals what's been hidden and asks you to release it with honesty. Not force. Remember that. Not fear. Gentle with that. But willingness. Consciousness. Breath. And today, we're going to talk about how do we move through that kind of depth without losing ourselves or yourself. And maybe even finding your voice, which is a big deal this next 7 years, however that will manifest. That voice could just be something as simple as, I love you. I'm sorry. I'll do better. And maybe that's finding that voice for the first time. Because as this energy unfolds, you may notice what you used to tolerate no longer sits the same. And sometimes when that happens, because we're human, it could come out the wrong way. It could be like, oh no, I said something I shouldn't have. But then you just retract. I mean, we're human. So then we say again, oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Because I've noticed maybe I've took, too much, a bigger bite than maybe I should have. So I'll backtrack a little bit. I'll put the brakes on. What you need to tolerate no longer sits the same again. What used to silence you starts rising. So we want to be very careful of that. Sometimes it rises with a lot of heat, and sometimes it can rise with maybe not enough boundaries. So it's just about trying to align with yourself, thinking before, because this Uranus and Gemini signature is ruled by Mercury. So it's about thinking, it's about processing, communicating. So thinking before you speak right now is probably really good. And if you don't, you learn, right? And what you thought was just fine begins to feel misaligned. That's what I felt this weekend. I felt misaligned as I was trying to align. It wasn't a real comfortable space to be. So that was a good time. I allowed myself to just sit and be in the uncomfortableness of what was maybe leaving and transforming, not maybe, what was, and then realigning, still in the process. That's not instability. That's awareness. So let yourself feel what comes up. And if you need support, you go to a friend, a family member, if that's appropriate for you, or you go see somebody, a therapist, body worker, an astrologer, or a coach. Not just the easy parts, but the uncomfortable truths underneath. There's where the work starts. Let your thoughts evolve. You could write them down. Gemini loves to write, loves to communicate in many different ways. Let your emotions speak. Let your body guide you back when things feel like too much. The body never lies. Take a moment right here to feel your feet on the ground or wherever you're sitting. Maybe you're lying down. Just feel the body parts that are touching the ground beneath you. And that's support. That's support. That's feedback to the nervous system. Scorpio teaches us that feeling deeply is not weakness. No. It's how we transform. It's how we alchemize what no longer works or what needs a little bit of uplifting, a renovation. This is what integration looks like, a word that I've been thinking about since Monday. I always think about integration, but I really started thinking about it. Integration. So integration is not perfection, but honesty, in my opinion. Not certainty, but presence. It's hard to take up space to be present sometimes, but everybody can take up space in a way that is not so bold, so egotistical that you just kind of bowl over everybody, right? It's a presence that is coming from the heart space and grounded in your alignment of soul, your soul. So wherever you are in your process, it's hard, but try to trust it. You're not falling behind. It's not a competition. We're all in this in different aspects in different places. You're not missing it. I promise you. You're learning to sit with truth, to release what no longer aligns, and to hold change without turning away from yourself. Yourself needs you, those parts of yourself that maybe have been suppressed or just not looked at for a while. They need to come back online and be taken care of. And again, that sometimes needs support from a therapist, a body worker, an astrologer, a life coach, energy healer, whatever the modality may be. And that, in its own kind of strength. Let me repeat that again, because I said that wrong, I feel. And that, in its own kind of strength, is where we begin to feel a sense of And that sound connects with the nervous system, connects with the messages that we are sending through the body. Because that's what has to happen first, needs to go through the body in order to process. It's a really, really, and I say this and people say, really? A beautiful time? It seems like it's a chaotic time. True, it is a chaotic time. True, things seem to be falling apart. But again, with heart and soul, that is the process of transformation. We can't just keep piling things up one on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, right? Things have to break open. It's just like if you see a log in the forest that's just been disintegrating back into the earth. That's transformation. And then from that disintegration, that food, it will regenerate and grow again. That's the same with the body. I'm using that analogy because I love that. You could see that every day. So feel what your strength is and trust it. I always say small steps. It doesn't have to be the whole ball of wax. It's too overwhelming. In this transit of Uranus and Gemini, we have 7 years that will shape who we are and where we're going. And it takes time to build that consciousness, that mindfulness, that embodiment in this new energy. And it's the energy Gemini air, where Uranus, feels a little bit more comfortable, has some breathing space to move. We came from Earth. It's a little bit more, boots on the ground. Got to do this. We got to rebuild. A lot of work, It can't be just flying away into our thoughts and ideas with Taurus. It was about right here, right now. And now we get to move. We get to breathe a little bit more. Not without struggle. Not without transformation. Not without addressing the shadow part of ourselves and the shadow part of Gemini, which could be, I want to do this. I want to do that. Oh, I don't feel grounded in this. Oh my God, I can't make a decision. Right? That's one aspect that Gemini has to learn. And the learning there is Gemini, and it's hard, come back to center and listen to what's happening in the body. Listen to the information that's being processed or wants to be processed. And then with this full moon in Scorpio, again, is asking, okay, as we do that, we need to renovate or excavate some things that don't work anymore. So let's use that as fertilizer. Let's combine that to alchemize so we can get to the truth of the matters, the truth of your voice, the truth of creativity, and the truth of love. So with that said, until next time, stay open, stay grounded, and keep listening to the voice that's becoming you. It takes time. Talk to you soon.